We're the two Pilates Chicks, and it is season 6, episode 12.
That it is.
Whoa. So we were saying last time, or the last podcast we did, which was episode 11, we kind of talked about different apparatus, different conversations, different cues.
Yeah. And so we were talking about the different pieces of apparatus in a studio and how you cue and teach differently on each piece, meaning like reformer to Cadillac to chair versus mat, and like how we teach differently in each one. And this time
it's basically the maker, like the apparatus, balance body, whatever it is, the difference between those.
Yeah.
So it's not the difference of the reformer, the chair, it's the maker of the apparatus.
The style.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we were talking about how every apparatus, every maker is different and not bad or good. We're not going to say one is better than the other, but there's things teachers really need to think about in terms of when they're teaching on apparatus.
Yeah.
And the different styles.
There just are differences between all the different styles. And for different people, the different styles might be better for one person versus the other. And some of us prefer one style of reformer over another. And depending on how things are taught, it can feel very different from one to the other.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of what we wanted to talk about a lot. But also it's like you kind of think about the different, there's contemporary, which for us, because you and I both kind of get the little heebie-jeebies when people talk about what we call modern being contemporary. Yeah.
So there's always that discussion on what is Pilates and what these styles, right? So we have, we've always had the classical versus contemporary discussion, but as we've been talking, we've decided there's classical and traditional, then there's contemporary, and then there's modern.
Yes.
And so what sometimes people call contemporary is not actually that. There's original contemporary that came from
way back
from all of what we call the elders, right?
Yes.
So Eve Gentry and all these people they created this contemporary lineage.
There still was that thread of his work, and they kind of added into it, but everything they did had that same in the system, that same thread.
Yeah.
And then modern is what you see now in the Mega Reformers and the classes with the props and the balls and the weights and the lunging and this and that. So that, to me, is not contemporary. That's modern.
That's modern.
Which is what we're saying.
Yeah. Which
not
is now, it's just a different style.
Yeah.
So now if you have modern, you can have, some people use contemporary equipment, which we'll talk about, but
a lot of the Legos
modern.
Yeah.
Yeah. But teach modern style of Pilates type work on it. But then there's also the modern studios, which are just Mega Reformer and Legree type court classes.
Yes.
So the equipment.
Yeah. So if you think contemporary for us, and this is us speaking, our opinion. You've got balance body, bossy, and then peak. I almost said pearl, peak, and stot. I was trying to combine people. Those are the ones we kind of think of as contemporary, especially if you're classifying it as we're classifying it.
Yeah, the contemporary. So balance body, peak, stot, bossy. There might be something else, but
we're not aware of it right now.
We're not thinking of now. But the classical / traditional side of equipment, where we have Gratz, Pilates by Design, and now Contrology by Balance Body.
Yeah. Yeah, and those fall into that category. And then we have, obviously, we talked about the Mega Reformer.
Which is just the modern style of stuff, Pilates exercise.
Yeah, and we're not going to go into the weird spinny ones or the rocking ones.
Yeah, which we have seen, not in person.
We've seen that, but not in person, just on there. But so we kind of went through the descriptions, what we feel is contemporary. But if you think about balance body, originally it was Pilates concepts, and it looked pretty much like the Gratz.
Yeah.
It had, it was the wood, it was the not colored springs, the leather ropes. And then that kind of developed into balanced body and more geared towards contemporary.
Yeah.
Which then dimensions changed and things changed so that that work could then be applied on that reformer.
Yeah, in that different way.
Yeah. And so that kind of gets us into what is the differences?
Yeah.
And how it applies for the teacher teaching.
Yeah. So we have one of the biggest differences between the makers is the springs.
Yep.
So on Gratz with the 4 equal weighted springs, we have the balanced body where you have the different colors.
And they're different tensions in the spring.
Yeah, depending on the color, and usually 5 springs. I think most of the contemporary reformers have 5 springs with differently weighted springs.
And the track is different. The glide is different. Like it glides very
yeah, the wheels, like how the ball bearings work is different. And then the foot bars, so different locking mechanisms or a non-locking mechanism of the foot bar. So with the Gratz having it just slide in.
And then the dimensions of the shoulders, dimensions on the shoulder rest are different. Mm-hmm. The dimensions on the carriage can be different.
Yeah, width and length.
Yep.
And obviously the types of material of the ropes and handles. And then risers are not of where it attaches to the reformer.
Yep. And then you have and it's true. One thing we can talk about is like just if you take the ropes that are on the balanced body, that feeds into the body and feels much different than a leather strap.
Yeah. Because you'll have a little bit of a different pull.
And it doesn't have the give.
Yeah.
The rope has a kind of a give to it.
Yeah. And if you have handles, like classical wooden handles, that's going to be very different of how you're working with a grip versus the loops where you have more contemporary longer hands, because it doesn't really work to grasp it as much.
And I actually had a client the other day who was just kind of with the Gratz and the handles on the reformer. She was kind of spinning them spinning them. She's like, these are nice because they roll.
Yeah.
And so the ones she had used, which was balanced body, or I'm not sure if it was, I think it was probably Allegro, or because she said it was one of the machines that's kind of like made for more groups.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And she said that it didn't.
Oh, that it was a handle, but it didn't spin.
It didn't spin.
Yeah.
So her wrist would have to
you kind of have to, you move the hand differently so
you don't really grip the same because you have to let it move.
Because the hand has to move over the handle versus if it's rolling, you can grip and work the grip strength and the handle moves with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was I was I just wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you don't even think about until you're actually on it and working with it.
Yeah. But that's what we were talking about. If you think about, we've both taught on different apparatus because that's what we were saying earlier is you teach on the apparatus that the studio has that you're teaching at. And sometimes you don't have the option of what your foundation was and what you did in your teacher training.
Yeah.
Because you have to work and teach.
You have to work where you find work. And so whatever apparatus they have there, whatever style, you have to be able to adapt the work to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the main point of what we're talking about here is you learn however you learn in whatever your studio is.
Right.
So you learn on whatever apparatus you learn on. You have to really understand and learn that foundations, but then you have to be able to adapt to whatever you work with.
Exactly. And it's funny because we talked about it's so important for the teacher to learn that apparatus if that's not what they learned on.
Yeah.
Because you can't just walk in from balanced body or Gratz to the other and think all the work that you did on the other is going to just translate.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't. And I know for me, there were certain things when I got into a contemporary studio or the PT studio where they had different apparatus, I didn't teach because I didn't like the way it felt or it didn't have the support or it was too whatever. So there were things that I didn't teach the clients that were traditional because they didn't work on that apparatus.
It was just different.
It's different.
Yeah.
Not that it was right or wrong, but it's like, you know what, that's not going to benefit anybody.
Yeah. It just doesn't work in the same way. And I'm the same. I mean, my original training was on old Balanced Body. It might have been
Pilates Concepts.
Yeah, it might have been one of those original. And so that's when I very first started, when I was like 14. But when I started doing my teacher training program, like 10 years later, we learned on I'm going to say the wrong name, but it's Balanced Body, but like the wooden studio reformers. I think
they're just studio reformers.
Yeah, studio reformers.
Yeah.
So we were learning on those, but with ropes and loops. And so that's what I then learned the exercises on to learn how to teach. Mm-hmm. And then when I first started teaching, like at different places, all different types of apparatus, all different styles.
Yep.
And then at my studio that I built at the club where I was there for then 10 years, we had Peak in one studio and Balanced Body in the other. And so it's all different.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the same. It's like I learned on Pilates Concept and Gratz, so there was a mixture. And that's where I learned. And then I went to, like you, with the studio, built it at the club and was there 10 years. Mm-hmm. So we have this like same path.
Yeah. Parallel paths.
Yeah. And so we had a mixture there. And they had some Balanced Body. And I remember the Cadillac was Balanced Body. And then we had two reformers and they were Gratz. So we had a mixture there. And then it's like I had never been on Balanced Body.
Yeah.
Once we got that. And I think the first time I was on the ropes. So it's like you kind of have to figure it out and get on the apparatus. I think that was the main thing we were talking about earlier. Is I remember I had a teacher that wanted to teach at my studio, and she had learned originally on Gratz and then had gone off into the world and been at different studios and had kind of lost the feel of it and understanding. So she spent a month coming in, going through the one-to chair, going through, getting on it, re-remembering, re-feeding into it before she actually taught anybody.
Yeah. And that's so important because when we came here and then like joined our businesses, and so we're on Gratz here, and I loved bringing my clients that had been only ever on Peak and Balanced Body to now give them the feel of Gratz, and it was so much fun to translate it for them and show them all the new work. But I had to remember that too. I had to.
Well, yeah, and if you hadn't been doing your work,
yeah,
because you'd been using it every week,
yeah. So it was familiar to my body, and so I understood how to translate it and adapt it. But it's so different because even something just from, let's say, like elephant. Like
totally
teaching
different.
my clients elephant on my Peak reformers versus Gratz, completely different cueing, completely different goal, really.
Yeah, I mean, you can't cue the elephant the same way on a contemporary or a traditional because the feel and the feedback of the spring and the track is so different.
Yeah.
So the focus is going to be different.
It's just different. And again, it's fine. It just is different. And so in the like contemporary elephant, it's taught as a flat back. And there's a reason because the spring feeds differently.
Yeah.
So
it works for that.
And that's what it works
Yeah.
with. In Gratz, it's that round and you're working on something different. You're finding that scooping and pulling.
Because it's dragging. You've got to pull it back in.
Yeah. And then that translates to the other work differently. So that translates into like, you pull up on the chair and like all these different things to find that scooping that you have to figure out how to get the client to differently if you're working on the different apparatus.
Yeah. But I think like what we were talking about, if the teacher hasn't experienced that, how can they teach it?
Well, then you don't know
you
the
don't
different
know the
feel.
difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also playing with the different springs. So like we talked about earlier, all the springs are different. Mm-hmm. And not just on the Reformer, but on the Cadillac, on the chairs. And think of how many different chairs there are.
Yeah, we were talking about that just the other day.
Yeah, I mean, even if you look at just Balanced Body, they have all these different chairs. Bossy, I don't know how many, but they have the different, the pedal can kind of be adjusted. So there's all these different.
You have different options on the different chairs in the different manufacturers where you can adjust the pedal height. There's some with the split pedal.
Split pedals. Worked on that in PT a lot.
Different cactus arms for the springs.
Yeah.
Some of the Balanced Body chairs
have white and black.
Yeah,
so
the four
springs.
springs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you're like, oh my gosh. And then the width and the depth of the chair is different. So if you haven't been on that chair and then you just think, oh, I'm going to do the same spring as I do on that chair.
Like, nope.
No, that's not going to work.
And so certain exercises you just can't really do in the way that you're expecting to be able to do them on the different pieces. Maybe you can't even do certain exercises. Or you just call it something different because you just can't do it in the same way.
No. And we were kind of talking because today in your session we did walkover. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about, because I had been doing a teacher training in another city and they had, and I want to say it was a, I don't know which Cadillac it was, but it was a wide dimension of the tower from, where your arms were. And all the people on the teacher training were pretty petite women. Like, they weren't like big guys and with, wide shoulders. So we couldn't do any of the inversions.
Because it's just too
couldn't,
wide for them.
Yeah, and they couldn't get connected to where they need to be in their shoulders to even lift themselves up. So there's things like that. It's like things don't translate just because of the dimensions of certain things.
And that's something to be aware of for teachers. Like, what's the width of your tower? So how wide is the Cadillac? Can the person even reach from side to side and hold themselves up there and find that connection? Because often you can't if it's too wide.
If it's too wide for that person, yeah. And then we talked about the springs on the Cadillac are different. Like the leg springs feel different. The arm springs for each
very different.
Each apparatus, each maker.
Yeah.
And like on the Balanced Body with the not the push bar, but the leg springs, you can move that bar.
Yeah,
up and down.
Where the springs anchor
the crossbar,
yeah. So you have a lot of different options on different types of options on different types of makers' equipment. And it changes. I mean, if you think about anchoring your leg springs on Gratz, it's that one spot.
Yep.
And you learn how to work through it. On Balanced Body, some of them are locked and some of them you can change.
Some of them you change.
So if you're lifting where your anchoring is of your leg springs based on height or whatever reasoning, it's going to change how the spring works.
How it feeds into the body.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think about not only the glider, the drag, and those adjustments. Oh, we talked about like the foot bar locking. Mm-hmm. Like some foot bars lock. And we were both saying we remember when that happened. Because we remember when the first kind of reformers came out from Balanced Body that had the locking. We're
that
like,
locking mechanism.
That's different.
Where it's for a safety thing. But as a teacher, if you are teaching on Gratz or an older reformer that doesn't have a locking foot bar, you need to be aware of that. Yeah. Because clients, and you have to tell your clients, because like when I brought all my clients here to be on Gratz, and I was very specific, it's like our foot bars over there locked. The peak ones like click into place like very heavily. These do not lock. Do not pull.
And I think that's what, and you can think about that. Like there's things your client can do in terms of like getting into some certain position because that locks and they can be pulling at it and whatever, and it's not going to move. But trying that on a Gratz, getting into a position and they pull on that is not going to be a good
they're going to fall. But if you think about where the Gratz foot bar slides in, and if you're doing, let's say, like tendon stretch, and if you're pulling in a certain way, if you're on an apparatus that locks, you can pull yourself, but that's not actually the purpose of the exercise.
It's not, yeah, but they can't cheat. We'll just say cheat.
Yeah.
On the Gratz, because they have to be pushing that bar back.
Yeah.
But if they don't have that ability, then they can grab that bar and pull themselves back.
Yeah.
On one that locks.
And so you're using that, and if you get used to doing that, you have to learn a whole new way of doing it on the other foot bar.
Yeah. And it's just realizing that some things don't translate between the different contemporary, definitely mega reformer, because we talked about that kind of, the dimensions are so different.
Totally different.
Totally different.
Completely.
So.
And the springs are completely, I don't even know how many, maybe 12 springs. From very, very, very light to very, very, very heavy. So that's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
But if you're just looking at the classical and contemporary equipment, they look very similar at first glance, or if somebody is not as experienced, they look the same.
Especially, I mean, because, it's a carriage, it moves, it's got a foot bar, it's got the shoulder rest, it's got the box.
Yeah.
And the box.
Oh, yeah. The box is very different dimensions.
The box is different.
Different padding. So it's all just different feedback into the body, and it will feel different for different people. But as teachers, we really, really have to experience it. So you have to have the embodied understanding of how your body works in it to understand how to dictate and cue differently.
And we were talking about this too, is you have to, as a teacher, you get out of your teacher training. I'm going to get on my little soapbox pet peeve. You get out of your teacher training and you're like, oh, I did all my hours, blah, blah, blah. Now I'm just going to teach. And you stop doing your own practice.
Yeah.
Either on your own or with a teacher. So you lose that embodiment. You lose that understanding and feedback of that spring.
Yeah.
And then you're not relating to it at all.
Yeah.
And you just need to continue to do that.
Yeah. And we were saying before, it's ideally, if you're learning new apparatus, ideally you would take some classes with a teacher that's really well versed in that apparatus.
To help you.
To learn the different points of feedback and what you're trying to do in those different exercises in that apparatus.
Yeah.
In that style.
And also being able to ask them questions, because if they're a teacher, they probably have, like you, a different experience elsewhere. And they can go, well, when I was on this apparatus, I taught this. And they can say, well, it really doesn't translate here, but we, and kind of guide you a little bit that way.
Yeah. And I find it really interesting to translate it from, it's like speaking multiple languages, right?
Yeah.
Or dialects of the same language.
Well, it's like, I remember we met at the PMA conference in Vegas, and I was teaching the workshop, and we got all bossy apparatus. And so in that moment, we had to figure out, okay, here's the one, how does this work? So we literally were in the moment figuring out, how do we get this work to translate here, and what are we going to do?
Yeah.
But...
And it's a process.
It's a process. And it's like, you can't just assume, oh, it's the same spring, it's the same setup, it's the same this.
Yeah.
Because it's not.
It is very not.
Very not. And you can tell, I know we have a hard out today. You were saying, because you went from, you hadn't been on your apparatus at your house in a long time.
Yeah, and that's where this whole topic came from. Because while during COVID, when I have a balanced body reformer at home, we purchased. We did
virtuals every week.
We did virtuals on it. And so while you were teaching me traditional sessions, I was translating it onto my reformer of how, I was picking my own springs to figure out how to make it.
I wasn't telling her anything. And the foot bar, you kind of figured out where it was for snake, where it was for this.
Yeah, whereas on Gratz for snake, the foot bar's down. On mine, I have to have it on the lowest notch. So it's very interesting to translate it back and forth. But once I was pregnant, it wasn't as comfortable for me because the Gratz is more padded, so that was more comfortable with the extra pressure points. And so I hadn't been on my reformer for ages. And just the other week I went on mine, and I've been doing multiple days a week on Gratz for the last 2 years. So then on my reformer at home, I went on it finally for the first time in a while. And was like, wow, how different. Mm-hmm. And just, I had never had that long of a break of not using the one type of reformer, because I'd always done both every week. And so it was so interesting to feel that embodied difference,
right?
From the spring pull, the rope pull,
and it wasn't like, ooh, this sucks. It was just kind of, wow, that's really different.
Fascinating. And like, where do I have to push and pull from to feel it differently? What am I choosing to do differently that's not going to translate in the same way? And it's just a study on movement and enjoying the different types of equipment.
Well, and also, I don't want to dig too deep because we're about to jump off here, but I think even if you get into the classical traditional, mm-hmm. there are subtle little differences mm-hmm. between controlology, Gratz, mm-hmm. and Pilates by design.
Yeah.
Because, I've taught, because I've gotten on, and then it's like, the spring is a little, there's like little, so even if they're the same, like,
style, like
traditional
type.
Classical,
yeah.
there are subtle little differences.
Yeah, and even in contemporary, like the difference of feel between peak reformers mm-hmm. versus balanced body, and stat and whatever, like there are very slight differences on every single one. And so even if it's in that same style of classical / traditional or contemporary, you still have to understand.
Yeah, you still have to get on it and kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, and again, it goes on to the whole thing. If you're a teacher, you just keep learning.
Always keep learning.
Always keep it in your body.
Yeah.
As my mentor said, always be a client once a week.
Yeah.
Period.
Very important.
Yeah. So important. All right. Well, yay. Oh, so we should talk about, we've got our website that you can go check out, mm-hmm. PilatesChicks.com.
Yep.
We have our group mentorship program that started last month, mm-hmm. September. And each month we have a different topic, 2 hours. It's Zoom. You can do the whole year. You can pick and choose. You can book your spot online. And what else? Oh, we have our study of the system.
Yep. So kind of it connects to what we were just talking about, but studying the full system of traditional Pilates.
From mat to reformer to Cadillac, all of it. It's a year program. Mm-hmm. 4 meets, is that what we said?
Yeah, 4 in-person meets and then some discussion as well. And just going through, it's good for people who learned from the contemporary side mm-hmm. to understand the system and how to connect through everything. Or if you learn classical or traditional, to just kind of dive deeper into it and understand that thread through
the
all
why,
the
the how, the purpose, all mm-hmm. that fun stuff. So that starts in 2026.
Yay!
But we're already taking
applications.
Yeah. So yay! Thank you for listening. Is that it? Oh, you can find us on Instagram, Reddit,
wherever you
Threads. Yeah, we're everywhere.
Woohoo!
Thanks for listening.
See you next time.
Bye.